Fine. You're like a child trying to figure out how the internet works. I
really
am Mr. Brad Chester, the youngest man in 40K, and these fine internet savvy individuals that couldn't figure out how a delay to YouTube or how an OBS works are Mr. Brian Horde and Mr. John Barsati hanging out with me tonight. And we are, bam, 40K Lorecast. Or, as I might have said before, 40K Lorecats.
Yeah, I spiked him a few times.
Bam. I put up the log, too.
Good job, David, on getting right in on the shit. How shit talks.
You're talk shit talking. Well, tonight you won't. I mean, you probably still will, but it won't be on purpose. How about that?
I'll find a way.
Absolutely. I do love the fact that I'm getting trolled on our Discord because of the poison thing. And it's one of the things we are going to talk about tonight is everybody's showing me the times when 100% legitimately people have been poisoned, Brad. They should have been poisoned the whole time. And I'm like, yeah, but not the 67 other thousand times.
Space Marines can be poisoned. Half the organs don't work. That's the whole thing about Space
Marines. Or
the
power armor, which apparently comes with a screen door.
And can't see in the dark. It's really dark out.
You know what? Screw it. We're starting.
Clearly, what we're here to talk about tonight is we're going to go with Space Marines lore versus tabletop. And why is it so messed up?
You know what?
What's the worst?
You know what? I'm going to start low and I'm going up. You know why? Because I'm going to start with one of my pet peeves. How, in the Emperor's name, does Night Fight have any effect at all on Marines who literally have they can see through it anyways.
A Space Marine gets an organ implantation so that their vision can see almost into different spectrums, but can see in complete darkness. They can see. Then they shove on them a helmet that can see into other spectrums of the world, of the light. But if it's dark out,
I can see in the dark with that. Like, there is no way that Night Fight should be like, this is a mission special. By the way, Night Fight used to be a special role, and it basically said you could only see so far to shoot at somebody. Night Fight means absolutely nothing in the 41,000 whatever it is right now. The specific
My favorite part of Night Fight is that, I mean, we're focused on Space Marines, but let's not forget, Night Fight also affected Eldar, who apparently in 65 million years couldn't figure it out. Necrons, Tyranids, who they have eyes in some of their units.
I just love the fact that also people that just see into the warp, demons, like somehow also got affected by night. It just doesn't even make sense. Also, I always wanted like somebody from Florida just driving a pickup truck to show up with some night vision goggles and go, "I got you guys, let's do this." Woo!
The better one though,
I think, other factions that augment themselves and everything else.
Yeah, there was no reason for Night Fight. I mean, there's just none.
That's why it doesn't exist in the game anymore, because it was silly.
It was the dumbest thing ever.
But you know what does exist in the game? Poison.
God damn it.
All right, so let's talk about poison, right?
Can we not?
Marines have an extra organ to help fight poisons.
More than one, thank you very much.
They have 3 organs.
So should they be immune based upon the lore?
Yes.
To poison?
They also have their power.
Really isn't poison anymore.
Their power armor literally enters. Yes.
So with them getting rid of the poison special word and replacing it with anti-infantry, they've kind of taken that out.
I guess so, but there are numerous things like poison weapons which make no sense. The Space Marine is designed, because not only is a Space Marine immune to poison, the Space Marine's got organs for, one of them is for food poisoning, which is just a very British thing to do, because I assume it came up a lot when they were writing the rules. They were like, well, every time I get fish and chips, I get the poops.
Every time I get fish and chips from that guy selling them out of his trunk of his car,
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to work out. I don't know what's going on. But, maybe I should get an organ implanted in me so that I wouldn't get it. So they have a food poisoning one. Then they have an extra lung so they can't get breathe poisoning. And they have a blood poisoning one. And then they shove a suit on them that has basically a medic sitting inside of it, like who's just injecting them
It's
with
also sealed. You could go
It
into
also has
space
an
with your power
it also
armor.
has an air filtration system.
Yeah.
Yeah, also that is true. I'm bitching about the Marines, but I do have to say OnePlus makes a good point on that. He's like, Necrons are susceptible to poison in the current game.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
One of the Necrons is a Necron warrior is dying from poison. Going, I don't know. Am I pretending?
So,
Is this like a?
so for those of you out there that have only played 10th edition and didn't know what poison was, back in the day before there was anti-infantry as a keyword, typically it was poison. That was the keyword that got replaced by anti-infantry. So.
Let's, are we gonna just go top up? Are we gonna
let's mess around, because I do think, the whole point of this is to talk about what is it that we read in a book and then we put them on the tabletop and just get sad. And I think specifically with Space Marines, and the one go ahead, Brian.
So can we break this up a little bit and just talk about Firstborn really quick?
Yes.
Oh,
and just go. Man, have you seen a tactical squad in the last 7 years on a tabletop?
I might say 7. When did 8th edition start?
Did you see Tactical Marines? That's 7 years ago.
2017, I think.
That's what I was saying. It's before that.
Yeah.
Because the tactical used to be the go-to. It was the poster boy of 40K. Was the tactical Firstborn Marine. And effectively, apparently, they found out that Primaris Marines existed, and then those guys got kicked right out the door, and they were no longer.
God, remember running a tactical squad with actually, you had a missile launcher or a las cannon in there. They were fantastic.
Las Plaz, baby.
Yeah, they would. Plasma in there. Yeah, and then in the books,
plasma pistol. Oh yeah.
That.
So from a lore standpoint, to Brian's point, a tactical squad, a 5-man tactical squad, kills how many cultists?
The answer is all of them. However, they still, at the time, tactical squads, people that didn't play them, tactical squads were wildly still apart from the lore. But a tactical squad at least made sense because Marines are supposed to be adaptable to the situation. They bring different armaments and stuff like that, and they could kill things, they could fight in combat, which they could do all of these because we had a couple guys with close combat, we had a heavy weapon, we had a special weapon, and then we basically got the Primaris Marines, and they're like, hey, remember how you guys used to be super adaptable? Okay, no, now you only do this one thing.
Right, but even the Primaris Marines, so again, 10 Primaris Marines against 20 cultists.
They would obliterate them off the board and there'd be nothing.
You'd move past them and they would just die. That's how it should be.
That's another thing. There's multiple stories.
In lore, it'd be 5 Space Marines showing up. And if you were playing against, we'll just say like a Traitor Guard army.
Yeah.
With the exception of the tanks, everything else would just die to the Marines.
Even some of those tanks might get taken out. That was the whole thing.
Here, I'll give you a good story of the cultists, though. You know what I mean? As far as how many cultist Marines could kill. Chaos was assaulting one of the Marine fortresses, and the word bearers used 1 million cultists and threw them at the fortress so that they could make a ramp so they could drop stuff up. Yeah. That's how many cultists Marines are killing. And it wasn't a lot of guys in the fortress. So how many cultists do you have? That is the amount of cultists in lore that a Marine could kill.
That's the truth is, like, we're talking about from a tabletop standpoint, when a Marine fights a cultist, the Marine's number of attacks should go up. They should basically get a sweep attack into cultists where it's like, oh yeah, each Primaris gets 10 attacks hitting on 2s.
Right now, if you take just any Marine, right? Any standard power armor Marine who's not a character, and you throw him against an orc in close combat, one orc, that orc might win that combat way more than it probably should.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Or
Well, it depends. Well, that depends on the book, though. Because if you get one of the orc books,
I like orcs. I'm making a joke because I like orcs.
no, I'm just saying. But if you get one of the orc books, you get a war boss and he's killing everybody. If you get a marine-centric book, they're killing as many orcs as you possibly can. I do need to go to the wall because Mike has the best comment. He goes, "Firstborns got treated like it was eventually discovered that their real father was the milkman."
I mean, but it is. It's like the way. I mean, you look at all the lore on Space Marines. I mean, even going back to Horus Heresy, right? A Space Marine versus a human was childish. Just like this isn't even a thing. We're not talking like professional athlete versus regular person. We're talking borderline god versus child. And they would just go. But then when you put them on the tabletop. And this is I do think this is one of the biggest problems I think players have is you read the lore. I'm going to build this army, and what you end up building is a diorama because if you put it on the tabletop, you just get sad very quickly, especially with Space Marines.
I mean, look, if you're playing on the tabletop and you're playing what I'm going to call fluffy bunny, and that's just because it's the term that's talked about on the internet. If you're playing narrative, you can balance the game where you can use Firstborn and stuff like that with your buddies. But it requires time, effort, discussion, talk to set all that up. If you show up at a Tuesday night at your favorite game store and you bring out and you're like, I got 6 tactical squads, 3 Devastator squads, some rhinos and some razorbacks, and I'm ready to go. I read this in one of the books and it was the backbone of the Imperium. And then the other guy across from you goes, yeah, I'm running, an Ironstorm. Here you go.
That is the dirty secret right now in the game, though, as far as the lore. As they came up with all these new Primaris foundings, for the Indominus Crusade. And then you have to ask yourself, man, where are all the Firstborn? Because there's a couple chapters that have a shit ton of Firstborn still. And then there's a bunch of them where you're like, are these guys all on a snipe hunt? Like, what happened to all these guys? There was chapter upon chapter of Firstborn, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, it's a bunch of Primaris Marines. Where are all your guys' Firstborn Marines? And no one...
Don't they talk about them basically taking them and making them cross the Rubicon into being Primaris?
No,
Some of them are broken while doing
they're
it.
mass producing them now. That was the whole thing. The whole idea was that Call figured out a way to just mass produce them. But you still, the math, I mean, whatever, it's GW math. GW math never works. But the math isn't quite lining up there. And Brad's right. There's a ton of Firstborn just, I don't know.
Yeah, because they also made it like it was going to be like a big deal for a while. They changed it for the story now. But in the beginning, especially in 8th edition, it was the big deal for you to survive from being a Firstborn to being Primaris. Because multiple chapter masters and other people became Primaris, and it was a big deal that they survived the ordeal, and now they're just kicking people in and pulling the lever and getting Primaris Marines shooting out, and you're like, wait a minute. I thought this was a huge accomplishment. You're like, Ted just did it.
To be fair, Brad, like we're gonna have to do a long cast about the origins of 8th edition lore and how they just went, yeah, never mind. At some point in that, where it's like you're bringing and the Yanari are coming back. Ooh, nope. The Primaris Marines are gonna check. Nope.
Bobby G literally walked away from that entire storyline like an 80s action movie star with an explosion behind him.
Yeah, nope.
Just like, hey man, there's a lot of storylines that aren't wrapped up. Good to hear. Hope they make a comic about it.
It's like this show getting canceled mid-season. Like, but there were cliffhangers. Never gonna know.
It wasn't. There was cliffhangers.
Go back to the planet, sulked by the Emperor's door, and beat Bobby G down.
I'm a little disappointed right now. We're gonna talk. This is still Marine lore on this because they missed the mark. Well, Dark Angel's Codex missed the mark. Period. But when they brought the Lion back, because when you bring Bobby G back, he's disappointed. He's like, kind of like, hey man, the Imperium's a train wreck. But instead of like raging about it doing anything, Bobby G does, and he dove into bureaucracy, got a couple of TPS reports going, and started, just being super pragmatic about it and going. They missed a real chance for the Lion to do what Dark Angels do best and murder people. And, you know, he had such an arc that he could have done, and that's why they need to bring Lehman Russ back, because no one is better at aimlessly raging in random directions than Lehman Russ, and we need that in the Imperium right now.
I mean, I gotta give Stephen F some credit. You know, you gave him the Firefly treatment.
Exactly. We got 13 episodes of Yenade.
That's what I was thinking of when I was making the comment. I was like, but what happened?
It was such a good storyline too. If you guys haven't read The Gathering Storm, by the way, worst, you know, I will Queensberry Girls fight you over this. Worst set of rules ever, because they jumped the shark so hard. That was formations and everything else. But the storylines in those books, if you have a chance to get them, and you could probably get them for like a nickel now because they were not popular after all that stuff went down. If you can get the Gathering Storm books, they have fantastic lore. Unfortunately, you're going to have to Firefly because they do not finish that storyline. And there's also about 5 storylines that go with that. They're major storylines that they also do not do. Well.
So what I will say is, just to bring us back on track, one of the ones I like to talk about that Brett and I haven't covered is Assault Marines, specifically Jump Pack Assault Marines, which I think are gone now anyway, but that's not important.
Oh, they're fantastic.
They're gone. They are just
they're now firstborn on that. And if you want to go with the firstborn, I'm sorry, they're not firstborn. They got rid of the firstborn regular guys for most of them. And they give you assault jump intercessors, who are really good, actually.
They're okay.
They're okay.
In the lore. I mean, I'm going Horus Heresy all the way back with this.
Well, these dudes were like backflipping in, doing ninja kicks.
Space Marines coming effectively out of orbit, you know, landing in the middle of you with a chainsword, get to that in a minute, or lightning claws. And just running through everything. I mean, like, they could clear an entire flank.
Let's talk about this between lore and whatnot. Also, if you had a choice between twin lightning claws and a chainsword and a bolter, I'm sorry, but you chose poorly if you came down with a bolter and a chainsword.
You're not Wolverine. No.
Right,
yes, they are.
30 seconds on the damn chainsword. Go for it.
Yeah. All right, first off, the chainsword makes physics-wise no sense. How do I hold it here? It's this big, and it's just going to break my wrist. To make it worse, any of us who've ever used a chainsaw, if it turns a little bit, it just jams and stops working. So how do you use a chainsword against an opponent? That being said, it's less dumb than having pointy bits on my hands that just get stuck in things.
They don't get stuck because they're full of lightning.
That's all you're going to have is enemy kebab, and you're running around with now like
electrified knives. They're electrified.
Yes, they're not just electrified, my friend.
They're just called lightning claws. There's no energy in them. They're just called lightning claws.
No, they are literally full of lightning. They have electrical charge. That's why they go.
Here's the thing, though.
They can't get stuck.
Going all the way back with lightning claws. If you look at them, they're claws on the end of a power fist.
Yeah,
I mean, also true.
What are you going? We're going to use big cat. And we're going to scratch our opponent till they give up, or you're going to punch them. You're going to have chunks of power armor stuck on it. So you're just going to run around with just things. They make no sense. But whatever. In the lore, they're cool. So I have to be. The just staring were amazing. Don't get me wrong.
So let's go. So if we have to suspend belief because we are talking about fantasy, everything. In Power Fists have a power field around them. Lightning Claws have some kind of power field around them in the lore. A chainsaw legitimately has a motor.
Chainsaw legitimately does not.
They have
lightning claws, power fists, all of that. Yes.
They've run out of juice.
Also,
and they've stopped working. And they just into a bludgeoning weapon.
They're like, hey, I was going to do some gardening, but instead I'm going to fight. Also, you are 100% right. The Thunder Hammer is the most thematically cool thing. Because, again, you have a giant. Also, the heavy Thunder Hammer is the only Thunder Hammer that does justice to the books when someone has a Thunder Hammer. Because the Thunder Hammers are described to be this ungainly, gigantic hammer.
Thunder Hammers are the inverse here. Thunder Hammers on tabletop are very good. Thunderhammers in the lore are a Thunderhammer in both of them. We've both seen Thunderhammers take out vehicles.
Well, in the lore, like 2 people have Thunderhammers, though. Like in the game, every other guy has a Thunderhammer.
That's just how you run your armies, Brad. I saw your.
I cornered the market on Thunderhammers. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Every Space Wolf player is still screaming at you about what you did the Thunderhammers in 9th edition.
You're welcome.
Did you have to play against him with that stupid list?
That list, that and last cannons, Brad was like, what if I just make this unfun for everybody? But,
look,
my point. But I'm still standing by. I'm not letting go of this jump pack assault Space Marine coming down. Just 10 of them should come down and
remember,
clear a flank.
they also came from low orbit. These guys are badass. They're doing halo jumps, basically.
Full on halo jump.
Landing
They hit
in
wreck
the
everybody. I cannot. I'm not trying to be mean, but the truth is, if you walk up to a table back in the 9th edition, and someone had a pack of 10 jump pack assault Space Marines, your first thought is, oh, I'm probably gonna win this game. Because it just was, they were that bad. They're just that bad. Like, that's the part where, and that's in the lore, it just breaks me sometimes where you have those pieces of, like, because any player who's new to the game would want to build them because they also looked cool as hell.
Dude,
it's a shame that some of the stuff that in lore, if you come to this game from lore, right?
Yeah.
If you go from, I was reading the books, I enjoyed the book series, I picked up a starter set, I put the starter set together, cool stuff. I have not learned how to play the game yet. My first 2 boxes I picked up was a box of Assault Intercessors, because damn, those are spiffy looking.
Yep.
And then I picked up a Jump Captain, and then I showed up at my local game store on a Tuesday night to try and get a 1,000-point game in against somebody. Oh, these didn't do anything. I just wasted $75 or $85.
Yeah.
Oh, we know what. Screw this. We're going all in because I want to tell my first story of 40K when I got models. Well, first off, Terminators.
Yeah.
In lore,
that's the one, unfortunately.
In all lore, Chaos or Imperium. And remember, I got into lore before I got into the game, so I was reading all the books and everything. 1990, whatever the hell, you know what I mean? So I'm reading all this lore, and every time Terminator showed up, like if there was a planetary problem, you sent 5 dudes down, and they were like, well, I guess this planetary invasion isn't going on anymore because 5 dudes showed up? Yeah. And that in the game. So first off, I didn't know that sprues and things of that kind of nature existed. So I thought I was getting 5 done models, and I got sprues. That was a story in and of itself. Made me super angry. But I put Terminators on the board. This is the beginning of 3rd edition, Brian. Both of you are around for that. So 3rd edition Terminators. I am so excited. I'm playing Snakes, and I throw down these Terminators, and I'm like, there's 5 Terminators. I shouldn't even have bothered bringing the rest of my army. I have 5 Terminators. In all of the stories, 5 Terminators showed up and basically go, big guys in one line, little guys in another. I'll get to you as I get to you. We'll ruin everybody. My first game, turn 2, a unit of command squad guardsmen shot me with plasma and a melta and killed everyone. And I went, how did Timmy, Bert, Billy, and Joey kill my 10,000-year-old Terminators?
Yeah. A Terminator is a dreadnought walking.
Yeah.
That's what it's supposed to be. They are impervious to anything but the largest guns, which apparently doesn't include a las rifle.
For the longest time, it was called Tactical Dreadnought Armor.
Tactical Dreadnought Armor, yes.
Yeah, that's their names.
Yeah.
And they are, the story that I love is Icar 4. There's an entire Gene Stealer cult rebellion going on. 20 Terminators land with one guy had a heavy flamer, one of them. And they killed a few thousand Gene Stealer cult members.
They were absolutely apeshit. I also played...
No losses.
No, I played Space Hulk before I played that also. You know what I mean? Before I played 40K. So I'm just like, these Terminators are like these ninja warriors encased in impossible, their ceramite army cannot be breached. And then 5 bros showed up and were like, oh man, those dudes look scary. I'm glad we shot them all in the face before they could do anything. And I went, what?
There is nothing in the game, I mean, not in the Space Marines worse in my mind than the Terminators because you sit there and say, first, until this edition, T4. It was the same toughness as a Space Marine, but what is it, 18%? Oh yeah, with a 50% better save from a 3 to a 2.
So let's just say that a human has toughness 3, and a Terminator who is 4 times the size of a human is T4 or 5. It just
he was T4. They were all T4 for the longest time.
Yeah. But I mean, even at T5,
they're at least a little bit more now. It's still ridiculous.
They should be the same toughness as a dreadnought. They're wearing a dreadnought.
Their whole thing is that they get dropped in the
say
books.
that they're not as tough as a full size dreadnought. I get it, but man, give them like T7. Give them something.
Yeah, true. It's 3+ and TD6 in 2nd edition. In 3rd edition, they didn't even have an invuln at the beginning of the edition.
Yeah.
They just got smoked.
5-up invuln, neat. But they sit there. But also their attacks are garbage too. Like a Terminator with a power fist should be able to drop a tank because I've literally read them doing that.
Chain fist, those guys were literally treating tanks as something in the way as they basically took a walk around the planet. They went, oh look, neat, your battle tank. And the 2 guys just cut a hole through it and just kept
literally
walking.
Cut through the tank and ran through the hole to go hit the next tank. Yeah.
Just
they're brutal. I mean, everything about Terminators in the lore, because it is in the lore, like 1 Terminator shows up and it's like, all right, we're saved. We're cool. In the tabletop, I have 10, and it's
in the Space Hulk lore, and I like to use the Space Hulk lore.
Yes.
Took 5 Terminators, took down 1,000 Gene Stealers.
Yeah, in close quarters also, because Space Hulk.
Yes, not Hormagaunts. Gene Stealers. Holy shit. It's they're probably the worst. There are other offenders though, so I said we can do the Terminators.
Well, is there somebody worse right now? Here, let's go into real quick before we move on, because I'm pretty passionate about this Terminator thing.
Yep.
The Don's squad of Terminators.
Oh, the Justinian. Yeah.
Yeah, used to show up and basically tell everybody else, you guys should wait because we're gonna YOLO swag. I don't want you guys stealing any XP because we're grinding some levels up tonight. They would just YOLO swag fortresses and just run inside and tell people to just wait for a little while.
They would run straight at well, where is the enemy's like the most concentrated chunk of firepower coming from? Oh, it's over there. Cool. Dunk, 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 dunk. Gone.
Yeah, that's true. Hunter's going to give me some Space Hulk mojo because there's only one man that's ever ran in Terminator.
That's true. Yeah, they would mosey. He's correct. But even Space Wolf Terminators, they're better. Same with Dark Angel Terminators, they're better, but they're not.
Yeah, but they're not Abaddon and 5 guys invading. Check all boxes. He again. They used to basically be the main characters in your video games. You're basically like, hey man, who you bringing with me? My characters from Baldur's Gate. I'm just showing up.
No. My characters that I cheated and put in all the codes to level up to the absolute highest level, and I put a mod in to give myself even more powerful weaponry.
I might have to say this, but we've got a $2 super chat from Lyle Dixon because he wants to pay for John to say a specific thing.
Now, listen, Meow. We're gonna do the 40K. Listen, Meow. Brad has had some brain challenges over the years and isn't always the best at the word lore and cast, and some of those letters flip around a little bit, and we end up with some lore cats.
40K lore cats, go Mew!
But yeah, with Terminators, it is amazing. Just how
because we're beating on Terminators. I want to beat on one of the Primaris units because the short story they put out for these guys was amazing. The Reaver squad that dropped in.
Oh, Jesus. They suck so bad.
You're
and
right.
in the game, I'm like, oh man, I
Trash
painted up when
fire.
this came out. I painted up 20 of them because I just liked them. I just thought their
They're
lore was
Batman.
They
great.
look so good.
So hard.
I mean, they did
But
have
their
the
lore
best is
phenomenal.
this is how bad they are. First off, in the lore, these guys are Marine Batman. You know what I mean? They're doing all this crazy shit, getting into places they shouldn't be. And remember, in 8th edition, they had the most broken rule because they ignored vertical distance, but you could deep strike, and vertical distance used to count. It wasn't this 5-inch engagement and whatnot. So they could make 1-inch charges, auto charges, and you still went, probably not worth taking anymore.
Because they didn't kill anything. They'd make a 1-inch charge on Drukhari warriors, and the Drukhari warriors would come out of it better.
Yeah, you're like, did you guys heal us? We have an extra guy.
I cannot remember seeing Reavers outside of maybe that Death Watch squad. Like you put them in like one guy in Death Watch. That was about it. They were colossally useless.
I'm gonna go to the wall on
like
this.
in lore, they have the old power combat knives that they had in Heresy, which were badass in Heresy.
Mm-hmm.
These guys have those knives, and they're strength 4, AP 0, 1 damage.
Yeah, that's an extra attack though.
It is worthwhile. As we're talking about this, we have to bring it up because we haven't. Because we said Terminators are the most disparate between the lore and the tabletop. But let's talk about the fact that the bolter in the game is this random trash gun. And
I actually was doing the notes on this earlier.
And the lore, it is legitimately firing rapid fire RPGs on it.
Yeah, a bolter, because Brad and I have a cast on this. I think it'll be coming out in about 4 weeks. So I was writing the notes on this 4 or 5 weeks from now. But a bolter is a self-propelled exploding round that comes out, accelerates to basically, the other speed of sound, and then it detects when it makes contact with something and then explodes.
Yes.
Or if it hits a guardsman,
It goes right through them.
It is.
It just hits the. Well, he did his litany. He did his litany of protection. He prayed to the emperor.
Jesus.
He did the
litany, yes. He probably did the litany of stealth. They didn't even know he was there. So.
That's true. Litany of invisibility.
Has no AP in the game just befuddles me.
I mean, it's
damage 1. It's the same damage as a las rifle.
Yeah. I think so. Is part of the reason that, and this is just the lore is hard to represent with a D6 system.
Yes. Yeah. To tell you the truth, 2nd edition did a better job of that because they used so many more dice for things. So they had D12 plus a D8 plus whatever. So you could have a little bit more.
They used the entire D&D dice set.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There were things that did D4 damage, D6, D12.
It went up to D20s, yeah.
Yeah. It went up to D20. And
it's just hard. It's just so wild because
and everything else.
Yeah. The difference between, and you can't make the factions trash, but like what happens when a couple Marines show up, against Traitor Guard and stuff like that, they just they punch to death platoons before, you know what I mean? So.
Well, and I think a lot of it is, though, what we're discussing there is like the weaponry is a good thing. When you have this scale of, because it just becomes, the other thing was also to make the game unfun. Like we were talking about somebody with guard, right? The way the ratio of in the game of guardsmen in the lore of guardsmen to a Marine is 1 million guardsmen, actually over per Space Marine.
Yep.
So from the Tyranids to Brian, to your thing, are even worse than this ratio.
Oh, yeah.
The way the game should be is if you're playing Space Marines, you should have like 30 models. And you're going to play against a Tyranid player who has 150. And you should be advantaged in that matchup.
And they should be shaking their models out of a giant bag. It just keeps going up. Like, how much, what do you get to bring? Whatever's in this sack of models.
It's not a points thing. We send you an Amazon box, and you have to fill the Amazon box with all of your Tyranids, and you just put them on the table, and we're good, right?
Yeah. I can do that with any size Amazon box. I got you covered.
I was just going to say, you have so much stuff.
But here's the thing, like, Steve brings this up, and I agree with him. Why the bleep does a Space Marine move the same distance as an unaugmented human?
Oh, dude, that makes no sense. You know what? I'm gonna.
The power armor is heavy. Yes, it's augmented to move faster and make up for all those things. But why does a Terminator move slower than a human?
I'm gonna up the ante on this one. Ready? Talk about people that don't perform on the table, even though they're pretty good on the table. They've got nerfed several times. You talk about people coming from low armor, the jump squads. Hey, let's talk about Inceptors in the lore. Just murdering shit. They're in Gravis armor with jump packs. Jump packs are for bums. I've got this stuff that moves my Gravis armor with anywhere I want. Again, also, I came out of a spaceship to come down here. And then in the game, you're kind of like, pew pew, and oh no, someone touched me. I can never get out of there. In the lore, these guys are like Chuck Norris kicking people in the face and using their pistols to jam them in someone's head and blow them away.
Actually, another one, if we're going to talk about that, one I'll point out is Blood Angels. Melta pistols, or whatever they're called.
Inferno pistols, yes, but I have to say, I'm gonna kick back on this one because I was thinking to myself, what Firstborn still performs, and Blood Angels are one of the few ones that has on the board ass kickery. It's basically them and some Space Wolves, but the Space Wolves do it with non-regular dudes, you know what I mean? Because you've got Death Company is never going to be what it is in the lore, but they are bad dudes with a lot of weaponry and the ability to kick the shit out of people.
It can't be what it is in the lore because
oh god no,
they would just win.
Well,
it's just like
well yeah, because also the Death Company is effectively just getting a bunch of rabid vampires on this thing. So
I'll just go home now that you brought Death Company. But I will say Inferno Pistol is another one that just drive me nuts. Inferno Pistol is a pistol that shoots the sun at you.
Well, it's a Melta weapons, period.
Melta weapons, period. Also,
let's talk about the fact that Melta weapons consistently miss things like Land Raiders and Monoliths, and you're just like, Timmy, what were you shooting at, bro? We you know what? We're going to talk after this engagement.
I mean, the better part is Space Marines miss. Let's just go with that. Space Marines miss.
But yeah, true story. Those guys are like shooting people's eyeballs out from fucking a mile away, and they're constantly missing.
Actually, a better one, Space Marine snipers miss.
Crusader Squad's also badass. Sangard are not doing. Speaking of people that are in the oh my god. In the lore, by the way, in the lore, there's not like a zillion Sanguinary Guard also. So, and these guys are legendarily amazing. And in the game currently right now, Sanguinary makes sad noises. Oh god, they're bums with the points.
Can I point out a fun one though that I do think it was incredibly broken between lore and tabletop, but this was enjoyable. Centurion Devastators as Raven Guard at the end of 8th edition.
What? Man, I've gotten some stuff really nerfed, haven't I?
That was all right, incredibly broken, but this is the first time that I think the tabletop was significantly better than the lore.
Well, look at it. Sometimes people have bad sentries, and you're able to sneak up 6 Assault Centurions. Also,
and the Assault Centurions, I think, about twice the size of a Terminator?
Yeah. It's just one of those things where you go...
And we were the forward deploy where no one could know we were there.
Look, man, they're very stealthy.
That was one I just always enjoyed, where I remember the first time I saw it and went, yeah, I know the rules say that, but, I mean, objectively, no.
I mean... It's just so funny because one of those things. You're gonna ask your sentries, "Hey guys, if we make it out of here alive, we're gonna have a talk about how bats snuck up on you."
Every single. Actually, a really funny story. My wife just left work that day. She's at Ford Motor Company, and there were 2 cars in the parking lot on cinder blocks. So I can tell you, some parking lot guard is probably having a chat.
Like, hey man,
they hacked our security system.
Yeah.
I mean, our comms were down. They got there. I don't know how.
Yeah, I have no idea how a 6 Centurion Devastators.
As trees are falling as they're moving forward.
I mean, I like the idea of one of them just like peeking behind a tree, and they're like, "Nothing to see here." Let's move on with our day.
They were so wide, dude. So ridiculous.
Like, just just like Looney Tunes style, like.
It zooms
one.
as it right. Meanwhile, 5 trailer park homes are inching across the field, which isn't that far from the truth.
I mean, and if you look at them in the Vanguard detachment now, where it's like, oh yeah, weren't there just like 6 giant guys right there? Yeah, I don't. Where'd they go? I don't know.
No, they're
They're like
sneaky.
6 miles over that way.
Mm.
Oh, that's pretty neat. How'd they get there?
We can't even go into the characters because the characters are always going to be like ludicrous. Because in the books, they obviously have plot armor. You know what I mean? So they're just taking out. Because also, by the way, in every book, at the end of all these big stories, they're always fought to a certain point. Every GW story has the Marines backed up to a random spot, and then for 3 to 10 days, they fight a never-ending battle against put in opponent X, and they always kick the shit out of them. And in the game, I think I can make it 1.5 rounds with any squad of Marines in the game before they get killed by lasguns. So,
Oh
I mean,
God, sorry,
if
just started
you
going
want to
with
get into
one
character,
Space
we
Marine to
can
dark.
argue Ragnar all day long, and we can talk about, the great relic that he carries around that killed Ghazghkull Thraka, but in the game does kind of f all.
look, man.
Well, I mean, Calgar. Calgar single-handed a bunch of Tyranids, or just
He single-handed all of the Tyranids.
He single-handed a Hive Tyrant and a Carnifex at the same time.
Yes.
or hear me out, or rattling snipers.
That's annoying. That bothers
Pick
me
one.
already. I'd rather hand-to-hand it. We've got such great.
There's so many of these, and it doesn't. I mean, even like the tanks are, the Predator tanks in the lore were great. When have you seen one recently?
They're pretty good for the points. They're actually. They're not bad.
They're starting to appear on the tabletop more
because
than
they're cheap. They gave them point decreases like 3 times in a row.
They took what, 2 editions off. So they're
Oh,
well vested now.
They think 3 or more actually.
Yeah, they were just.
They were good in 5th, and then now.
Yeah, I was just about to say I haven't seen them.
You know what? They're really well polished. They've had a lot of time to go just get all that grime off. They're really ready.
I was
going
to say that we haven't used them in enough editions where we were digging through the back of the cabinet and pulling dust off them. So it's been a hot minute since anybody put a Predator on the table.
Predators. To be fair, it's a lot of even dreadnoughts have been that way too. I mean, a traditional dreadnought with just do either las cannon missile or auto cannon fist.
Also, dreadnoughts, especially this edition, we've got a couple random things that go crazy. We're looking at you, Murder Fang and Death Company dreadnought that can break the rules and destroy an entire army. But in the lore, when you let a dreadnought loose, shit goes down.
Oh, a dreadnought will wipe an orc army single-handedly. He'll just walk through and just shoot them with the autocannon and just grab them and randomly just grab one and crush them piece by piece by piece till he gets to a real war boss. That's it, no problem. On the tabletop, I will take 10 orc boys over a dreadnought 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah, because the knob is going to punch you with a power fist.
10 out of 10 times. But that's the thing. It's like dreadnoughts they're not as bad as Terminators, but they're in that realm. They also should have basically perfect ballistic skill and weapon skill because it's a veteran Space Marine who they decided to save and entomb in this thing. He's got one purpose, and that is land and F shit up so no more other Space Marines die. And instead, I guess he might be able to hold an objective. He's not as good as what's the war suit where the Space Marines actually piloting it like alien style?
The Invictor war suit.
Invictor war suit.
Which is better, that or a dreadnought, which is an entombed, dead veteran Space Marine?
Also, I mean, they kind of juice him up too. If they wake that dude up and just pump in full of crystal meth and tell him to go. So that dude's not exactly super cool. I mean, it's better than chaos because at least they have a ritual. Everybody's there. They're putting this fallen brother so he can still continue to help the chapter. Chaos pretty much goes, "Hey, Timmy, look in there," and they just kick a dude in a hole and just seal it shut.
Yeah, I mean the Chaos Terminator, Chaos Dreadnought, and the Sisters, Penitent War Engines, kind of similar.
Well, it's not as bad as that. Sisters are weird, man.
Well, it's the same dude. If you think about it, it's the same person shoved in either of them. It's better who gets them first.
True. Yeah, I'm gonna have to say I'm gonna go with a Loyalist Marine chapter before the Sisters.
As I'm gonna circle back to the Primaris Marines a little bit. Why the hell are they not tougher than a standard Marine?
I mean, they are kind of.
Because
No. Why
the
are they
players
not-
revolted when they did it the first time.
Why
Yeah,
are they
when Primaris Marines had 2 wounds and
It's
Firstborn
been
Marines had 1 wound,
Years, get over it. It's been 6 years. Move on.
Oh, I
people
know. I mean,
lost
they
their
should be.
mind.
They should
over
be a
that.
tier up. They should be strength 5, toughness 5, and 2 wound, either 2 or 3 wounds. Yeah, they should all be a tier up because they're meant to be. They're a better soldier.
They're bigger,
internally.
faster, stronger.
They have better armor too. Don't forget.
Yes, they're also
Did
a
they still
foot
have,
taller.
did we lose? I don't play Space Marine. Did they lose the AP? I remember.
Yeah,
And they,
On the
they lost the AP on the rifle too, didn't they?
Well, there's no effing difference between the two of them. If the Primaris Marines are supposed to be the bigger, better, stronger Marine, God damn it, make them on the table.
Yeah.
If your lore says that is bigger, better, stronger, make it bigger, better, stronger. Don't make it the same. There's no difference right now between a tactical Marine and an intercessor other than the warrior that the unit can get. It's the same.
In the
damn
lore, they're significant. They're also significantly faster. I thought that on the table,
they're 25% bigger, and it's everywhere. So
well,
they're
one of the
bigger.
one of the biggest things about it when they talk about them though is that they can cover more ground. They're significantly faster, so they can literally get 2 places because they design their armor better too. So their armor, while being more protective, also let them move faster. Yeah, why isn't Bjorn better? Yes. Also, his model is hilariously small.
Real quick. Yeah. I just want to see what moves faster, a Terminator or an aggressor?
They're both 5
they both
Why?
5.
Why?
reasons.
I think
Look
it's
up.
because part of the reason on the tabletop, I think, is the board change size.
Yeah.
Has made so you can't have like such a disparity of movement because it'll throw some things off game wise.
Mm-hmm.
But please, by all means, we had at one point where everything moved 6 in this game, right?
Yeah.
We lived through those editions. Now we have it where things can move different. Can you take advantage of a thing you put in the game to make it more thematic, to make it more fun? You know, and,
yes. Yeah, that is for a different cast, by the way. We are going to talk about that. We talked about that before we went live, soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll definitely cover that. But like, Space Marines should be able to walk up to anything that's a human type item and go, flick, all right, let's move on.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be, oh man, there's 20 Gene Stealer cultists and I got, 10 Marines hitting them. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to chew through them all.
Yeah. Let me bring another squad in. I mean, I do like the comment that the Brotherhood of the Snake, one Space Marine stopped just Dark Eldar. Like, nah, nah. Yeah, it should be. And again, I think part of this is a business decision where to run Space Marines correctly, you'd have to change their data sheet so much that you'd only be running 10 Space Marines, and someone else would have, and someone runs 50 orcs, and you go, yeah.
This is what I'm going to refer back to. At one point in time, in a White Dwarf, they had a thing called Movie Marines, where it was 100 orcs versus 5 Marines, and very, very rarely did the orcs ever win the scenario.
No,
and they had 2 or 3 different scenarios you could try out. It was absolutely fanatic. It was 100% what the lore was. The Marines were nasty. They killed stuff. They flung stuff around. And unless the orcs got like 10 orcs on one Marine, the Marines didn't go down. So it's just, I don't know. It's just the lore versus the tabletop. I realize that you cannot have 5 guys badassery kill everything, but there should be something.
It should be at least a smidge closer on that.
They shouldn't bounce. I mean, that's my biggest issue. Is like a Space Marines, even removing Terminators, which is the worst part. But Space Marines hitting a 20-pack of Guardsmen should be an auto. 5 Space Marines, that should be an auto.
No, man, I could have gave them a 5-up invuln. There's a good chance that pack of Guardsmen's going to kick the shit out of you, by the way.
Oh yeah, because I mean, if they spend the CP for fixed bayonets. It can actually get pretty ugly pretty quick. And it never should. In the lore, I mean, when Eisenhorn sees a Chaos Space Marine, it's like, well, I just see one. I need to call death. I need to call in support. I can't deal with it because there's one guy here. Like, we will lose everybody. It drives me nuts. I don't play Space Marines anymore, but when I used to play Space Marines, it drove me nuts. You put them on the table and go, yeah, this thing sucks. With one exception, because I do want to give Brad more grief about this, about how he likes to kill children. Space Marine Scouts.
It depends what the goddamn chapter is, how young they are. Thank you very much.
This is actually more, I have 2 issues with Space Marine Scouts. Oh, so Space Marine Scouts are children. They're about 13 to 14 years old. Okay? Yep. The models are full-grown men.
And depending on what chapter, goddammit, some of them stay in there for a while.
I mean, yes, in Space Wolves, yes, they stay in for a long, long time. But in every Codex compliant thing, they're children fighting along the adults.
Yeah. Look, man, he always gives me shit because he's like, your tactic of lining up children in front of your opponent to slow them down is pretty brutal, Brad. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? He's like, you do know scouts are just teenagers, so you consistently put
if you're lucky, some of the Space hands. They're 9. Like, they grab them. Like, if you're coming out of a high world, they'll grab them like pre-puberty. Like, all right, this one's mine now. Like, yeah.
The children yearn for the mines.
Yeah.
I do have a poll going right now, guys.
Which also, by the way, but then they become incredible snipers, and then they become Space Marines, at which point they stop being snipers or being able to shoot.
Well, sometimes you got to stormtrooper it up. Just
so, hey, now wait a second. Now that they have like not the Eradicators, the Eliminators.
Eliminators, yeah.
Some of them probably go there now.
I mean,
some of them.
Eliminators are, goddamn, that's another thing. They're okay on the board, but those guys are like the Ghost in the Shell kind of dudes in the book. You know what I mean?
They're shooting a sniper las cannon at things.
Yes, and they also disappear into nowhere with their special armor to blend in and go away.
They are. I mean,
ooh, Martius Calgar and Tor Garadon are going toe to toe right now.
It's Calgar. I'm sorry. It's Calgar. It's just as
it depends. Which version of Calgar are we talking?
That's the problem.
I mean, I put Mephiston up here too, and few people know Mephiston currently. Talk about people that do not show up as they're on in the lore. Mephiston's been powering up Super Scion in the last 4 books, and on the ground he can join, I think, 2 guys with brooms, and he's not that tough. You're like, I just read a book where he was just flinging matter, immaterium, everything else at everyone, and just killing anything he saw while having a chit chat with the Sanguinor. Yeah.
Put on the tabletop.
Bucket with idols.
Yeah, I'm starting to think maybe. Do you think it's possible that the Imperium just makes horrible equipment, and the Space Marines are just told it does all these things, and like the organs do all these things?
They're listed all this stuff. Like... the best part is none of it's true. They have no extra organs at all. They're just bigger.
Yeah, there's nothing in there yet. They just fed them a bunch.
Yeah,
like,
they're just like, hey,
just give them generic steroids.
What goes into making a Space Marine? You're like, lots of growth hormone. What about all these special organs? Nah, you don't have any of that. That's just crazy.
What they gave them all the steroids they used at the American Gladiators from the TV show used to take, and that's just all that they are. And they're just jacked up, and they gave them the helmets made of tin Like it's just these random, yeah, go get them, and they're running through the galaxy shooting things, but none of these bits
And you're
work.
wearing this giant Cermite armor, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. What'd you make that out of? I don't know. We just picked up some scrapyard
Hey,
stuff.
all I'm saying is, you know
the
who doesn't
HUD
wear
you're looking through is actually painted on, and there's a little bit of a slit you can see through. Like that's the actual answer. They are performing exactly as intended.
Hey, you know who can see perfectly well? Space Wolves, because no one's wearing a helmet because no one can see your sick tats or
All
your
right,
cool
look,
ass
I've already
top
shit
knot.
on it. Brad, I don't know if they got recorded, but I went off on Space Wolves. The fact they smell their enemies. Oh no, that could get recorded. That was the other one too. That was just objectively stupid. So Space Wolves can fight without their helmet on because they can smell when their enemy is about to. Their muscles are going to tense. And they can smell a strike coming.
Bro, look it. No one's gonna see my sick ass new tat or my awesome top knot if I'm wearing this dumb helmet. So,
Yeah.
hello.
Hi, but if we go all the way back to second edition, man, was that a drawback?
Oh, the top knot.
There was a thing called a virus grenade.
Yeah, true.
Just if you didn't have a helmet, take a toughness check. You could die.
Dude,
You mean
second
the way
edition
it
was
should be
fucked.
played? They made you a helmet. Wear the helmet. Well, I can see better without. Objectively, you can't.
You didn't need to see. People needed to see how cool you were. Are you not getting this? How are people going to see how awesome I look if I have this helmet on? Protection's overrated.
Yeah.
All right, Brad, please read what Steve wrote.
The spaces are coming quick. Like, you start taking dump over there so they can't smell our muscles. I hope it's also 8 guys in a corner taking a deuce.
Like, if I just did the Schwarzenegger in Predator, could the Space Wolves just not find me?
Yeah.
Is that's the trick to beating the Space Wolves? Just like, I don't know, cover them in mud. They'll never know where we are.
Jokes on them. They like sniffing butts. That's how they say hello. All of the things, some of the stuff. Fantastic.
That's like another one too. The difference in Space Wolves of like second, third edition lore versus now, I'm still confused when they did that army.
Yeah. Hi. The Wolfen come back from the Great Company. Yeah, Russ is supposed to come back with them.
I will
We'll get to that
punch
later.
2 babies right now. They literally had a prophecy that the Great Wolf was coming back when the Wolfen came back. And they did, and apparently everybody just lost him in the grocery store. Also, they used to have the best lore because Space Wolves are still in a legion because of the fact that they have so many great companies led by all these. You used to have to take extra characters, HQs, depending on the points you played in, because they have these giant personalities that lead their particular groups. And then effectively, you get a couple wolf companies together and they fight with a bigger leader and whatnot, and that's how you get bigger incursions, and which sounds a lot like chaos, but we won't talk about that. But also,
let's close out on this on a fun one. What's lore Space Marines? What's the most disappointing faction, or disappointing? Whatever. Which is the one between lore and tabletop is the biggest letdown?
Death Watch.
Ooh.
oh yeah, because they're supposed to be like the best of the best. It's literally SEAL Team 6 of Marines.
Yeah, but I was thinking Blood Angels because I could see Blood Angels not giving their best to Death Watch.
Yeah. Or they gave some guy that they got from a different chapter just
Look,
spray
if they
painted him
fight over
red.
Thirst, we're in some serious shit, guys. So I say we just send Eric.
You're like, that dude's not a Marine. He's just some guy that was doing the accounting.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, Eric's great. Eric was on ball. He holds up well. Do not send a real one. I think Blood Angels, just when I read the lore, Blood Angels, they are almost unstoppable. They rip through anything from a melee standpoint.
Sorry, they had to get their asses saved by demons. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
They had to get their ass from a Tyranid invasion. The Ultramarines repelled them off. The Blood Angels
That's a
went,
good point.
oh
Yeah.
my God, the demons showed up. Thank God we're saved. What?
Hey man, Kabata had to roll down in the most confusing fight ever for Tyranids. What is even happening right now?
It's still one of the best fights, though, from a lore standpoint. There's nothing funnier than like a I just love the idea of a bunch of blood angels are standing on fighting, Tyranids, and demons show up. Like, now we're screwed. The demons beat up all the Tyranids and leave.
Yeah, and like just talk some shit and then smoke bomb out. They're like, deuces.
That feels like a bad omen for us. All right, but also go team. But what Space Wolves? I mean, the thing is, my thought process was, I think Death Watch are Space Wolves.
Space
Tabletop versus lore.
Tabletop versus lore.
Not including Invisible Wolves of 7th edition, Brad.
I mean, yes, but
no, the ones that worked with the Dark Angels hand in hand. No, don't even talk about that.
Yeah,
that'll pound me up for days.
In the same squad, by the way. It was so dumb.
Yeah,
but the Space Wolves, it also is between what used to be and what is now, because I actually think that Space Wolves were obviously in lore they're going to be different. You know what I mean? But for a while in the lore and the tabletop, they got the flavor of Space Wolves, and now,
That's true. That's true. I'm trying to think. Maybe Fists then probably are the ones who get the least tabletop benefit from the lore. But
nowadays they do, because they change their stuff. Yeah. I mean, tell you the truth, if you want to go with people that don't match it, let's just go Raven Guard. Dude, I mean, I was bringing Centurions and stuff in my Raven Guard, in lots of them, in the best way to play them, and those guys are supposed to be stealth masters.
Right now on the tabletop, Codex compliant Space Marines are all the same. It comes down to the one special character. If your special character does something unique and neat, that's great. But the special characters for Raven Guard, Imperial Fists, Iron Hands.
Well, they don't change how you bring your army.
Well, let's skip 10th then. I mean, I'm thinking back like 9th and whatnot. I mean, I think Salamanders were good because they would burn.
Salamanders
better.
are the good guys, but it doesn't show it on the table. So I mean, that's a big thing. Salamanders are one of my favorite chapters, but you don't get that, and those guys are basically paladins. You know what I mean? I love them in the lore.
I'm just trying to think through though, but like from a standpoint of like, I'm thinking like 9th, 8th, 9th, even back in the 7th, the Iron Hands, the Space Wolves, they were flavorful. They kind of matched the flavor to a point. They weren't as disappointing. I'm trying to think who's just disappointed you over and over and over again when you put them on the tabletop.
If you're going lore, it's they're telling you it's Raven Guard.
Yeah,
because they have nothing to do. They've never had anything to do with the lore.
Just sad.
They're supposed to literally be the stealthy Marines that do these ninja strikes.
I'm still going to go with Death Watch on a personal level, because I just don't think at any point on the tabletop have they matched what they are.
Well, they should be an army in the first place, though. They're supposed to be the best of the best.
What about Ultramarines, though, in that same regard? I mean, Ultramarines are supposed to be the best tacticians.
They have had some good rules, though.
They've had some good times.
Yeah. So,
you're right. Yeah, the Gilliman full reroll was a party, wasn't it?
And Tiggy's was arguably the best caster in the game multiple times now. So,
but he's also arguably the most powerful psyker in the galaxy.
Eldred begs to differ, but
right, fine, top 10. But yeah, you're right. I was fishing on Ultramarines and Fists, but no, you're right. I think it is. Brian, you're right. It's Death Watch. I mean, it's just disappointing what Death Watch do. They should have better ballistic skill, better everything. Also, they lose to Xenos all the time.
Which, no, you know what? I'm not even getting started on that. John, where can you find us?
All right, we can find us on Spotify, on the 40klorecast.com. We have a website, the www.40klorecast.com. If you guys are looking for anything about Brad Chester, that's one of the few places you can go to actually click on a link and get his email address instead of having to write it down as he shouts it at you.
If you're gonna be like this and say these kind of things, it's really hurtful. It's almost like there used to be places you could find me, and now you can't.
Yeah, the new cast comes out every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. We also have a Discord that Brad put in there. I believe this coming week will be, the Imperial Guard.
Imperial Guard.
We were doing our first coverage of the Imperial Guard primer. And good news, everybody. Turns out Tyranids suck. All you have to do is read the Imperial Guard primer, and it'll tell you how undangerous and slow they are.
So the biggest thing is it's slow. Gene Stealer is very slow.
Very slow, and they're not very pointy.
Yeah.
Also, Eldar weapons are archaic. I mean, they're ancient, and don't worry about them at all.
I would say Zoobs has that primer also too. So
that's really good for
it to us on stream before.
Yep. It is dude.
it might
could
be
not
the
stop
best
laughing.
thing GW produced. Like, not
Absolutely.
including Black Library, I think it is. It might be the best writing that they did.
it-
I mean, it becomes that era, that fifth
It
edition,
was hard to
third
do
edition
it.
era.
It was hard to do it justice in the cast because it
Yeah.
was so goddamn funny to listen to. So
Mhm.
It's just an amazing thing. So anyway, that's where you can find us. Brian, Salt City.
So, of course, the Salt City GT is the saltcitygt.com. We are getting close to getting full on 40K. If you want to get on 40K, do it now. If you are an Age of Sigmar player and you're like, oh man, I really want to play 4.0, it's going to be the first GT running 4.0 in the Northeast. So sign up today.
you are such a
The
wild man with that.
saltcitygt.com.
All of the goodness, all the time. Cool. On that note, everyone, Queens wave us out of here. And as always, stay Mickey, my friends.
Enjoy.